5 Live Breakfast with Adam and Rachel this morning. Now, we have been focusing mostly on the budget today, but there are other important stories, as we were just talking, the one there concerning Nigel Farage. But this one as well, which you may be aware of, it's emerged in the last couple of days that the Justice Secretary, David Lammy, is planning a big overhaul of the whole criminal justice system, which could see the end of jury trials in, well, most cases in England and Wales. So this would apply to all but the most serious cases like rape, murder, manslaughter, or other cases that would be of significant public interest. But anything else would not be tried by jury. The plans were confirmed in an internal government briefing produced by the Ministry of Justice, but the MOJ says no final decision has been taken by the government. Let's talk to Chris Daw, a barrister and author of Justice on Trial. Hi, Chris.
Good morning.
Now, this has all emerged after Sir Brian Levison was called in to have a look at the whole criminal court system. And you have to acknowledge, or we must all acknowledge, that there is a bit of a crisis here in terms of funding, backlog, and how we move forward. Is that sort of generally accepted?
Well, it's accepted that successive governments have failed to fund the criminal justice system, including the Crown Court, over decades, and have left the situation where half the buildings are crumbling, 20 or 30% of courtrooms are not being used, judges are sitting around with nothing to do because their ceiling is flooding or the air conditioning is broken down. That's all true. None of this is the fault of the jury system, which we've had in this country for around 1,000 years. It has been exported all over the world, and it is undoubtedly, and I say this as someone who's conducted hundreds of jury trials, it is undoubtedly the fairest way to decide serious criminal cases and the only system devised that commands almost universal confidence amongst the public. If anyone can think of another system that has those two qualities, then go ahead. But I'll tell you now, this is not it.
Well, I can hear the anger in your voice. Sir Brian Levison, who hasn't, I think as yet, he hasn't absolutely concluded his review and published all its findings. But what he has said is that there does need to be something quite radical done here. So what would be the alternative if not to get rid of jury trials?
Very straightforward, and actually it wouldn't even cost a huge amount of extra money. First of all, you have to open up all those courtrooms and make sure that there are sufficient judges to fill them all. That's going to give you 20-30% extra capacity. The second thing you need to do...
just to say, that does sound quite costly and also quite time-consuming.
Well, compared to setting up an entirely new court structure or allowing judges now to conduct cases in a completely different process than we've ever had before, it really isn't. But I mean, let's use common sense. If a third of our rolling stock was off the rails at any one time and people were complaining that the trains were late, you wouldn't say, OK, well, we're going to stop using trains. You would say, let's repair the ones we've got. Let's get them working, and let's get the whole system back in action. But that's just one thing. Firstly, capacity. The second thing is this: we charge thousands and thousands of people with petty crimes, including crimes that the things that they said on Twitter and then deleted and so forth. We are wasting billions of pounds on pointless criminalisation, pointless incarceration, of mass incarceration on an unprecedented scale in this country.
Give me another example of that then, because I understand there are some sort of high-profile cases which we all learn about, but is the whole criminal justice system really clogged up with those kinds of cases?
It's absolutely clogged up with those kinds of cases, because if you think about it, every time you're trying someone with a severe heroin addiction and psychiatric problems for possibly several days in front of a jury for a crime like burglary or even shoplifting and so forth, of course, it's a complete and utter waste of public money, because it's not going to achieve anything.
Yeah, that is slightly different from someone saying something on Twitter. So you're saying we need to rethink what we regard as being a crime, effectively?
Absolutely. I mean, take drugs and drug possession. We've had drug prohibition now for over 50 years. It's achieved nothing except huge inflation in the number of crimes being prosecuted and the damage and danger to society that's done by illegal drugs because of prohibition.
Could you solve the whole court backlog if you just decriminalised all drugs then?
No, if you legalised and licensed the drug supply chain, you absolutely, within a 5-year period, could achieve an extraordinary reduction in the number of people actually committing crimes in the first place, and certainly those going through the system. But the fundamental issue we have here is this. Every single jury trial, every single closing speech that I make begins with these words. We have had jury trial in this country for around 1,000 years. We've exported it all over the world, and we've done that successfully because it is the best system ever found for the fair trial of people accused of serious crime. That's a true statement, and it's one that almost everyone in this country believes in. So why on earth is a deeply unpopular government going about dismantling something with 1,000-year constitutional history? I'll tell you why: because they're as incompetent on this issue as they are on so many others.
So Sir Brian Levison, one of his recommendations is that you have a sort of interim solution to this, where a judge would sit with two lay magistrates, a kind of intermediate court. Now, that is not the full jury system that you clearly advocate, but would something like that be more palatable for you?
Absolutely not. And I'll tell you why. The fundamental issue is this. Jury service is the one public duty left. It's the one thing that you as a citizen can be required to do by the state, whether you like it or not. And that means that those 12 people sitting in that jury box represent all of us, because they are us. They are other citizens of this country who have standards and values and beliefs and morals which come into play to decide fairness and to decide the outcome in the most serious and appalling cases. If we scrap that, people will have no confidence in the system. People have confidence in the system because they know it could be them on that jury, and they know it could be their father or their son or their daughter who's been put on trial, and they trust ordinary people to make decisions in a way they don't trust politicians and they don't trust others in our public sector. So keep the jury system at all costs, because it's fundamental to our system of justice.
Given the passion you clearly feel in this case, what are you and others in your profession going to do to try to resist this?
Well, the Criminal Bar Association has come out publicly representing all criminal barristers with a 90% return. 90% of criminal barristers opposed to the effective abolition of jury trials for all but a tiny number of cases. What the profession will do as a whole, I can't say, but I would not be surprised if there is a significant move towards a refusal to cooperate with a system which upends our constitutional history for short-term financial and political reasons. We will not accept this as a profession. We will fight this with every ounce of our being, because we believe in democracy and we believe in the right of ordinary people to make decisions about their fellow citizens. And that should not be taken away, because successive governments have messed up the system for decade after decade. Put the system right. Get your own house in order. Which institution commands the most respect, I wonder? Is it the jury and the jury system, or is it politicians and Parliament? I'll tell you what most people in this country would say. Okay. They would say, you can't scrap the jury system. You didn't put it in your manifesto, and it's just wrong.
Don't want to cut you short, Chris, so apologies, but we have got other things to talk about before the end of the programme. Thank you very much, though. Really, really good to hear your thoughts. Chris Daw, who's a barrister and author of Justice on Trial. So, a spokesperson